Hey everyone, I'm Travis and let's get wanderlost. Last month we went on a 4-night cruise aboard Navigator of the Seas out of Los Angeles. This was our first time sailing on Navigator of the Seas, our first time sailing out of Los Angeles, and the shortest cruise that we have ever booked. This 4-night cruise had 1 sea day, 1 stop in Catalina Island, California, and 1 stop in Ensenada, Mexico. And since this was a cruise of first, this was the first time that we went to Ensenada and the first time that we went to Catalina Island. This video is going to be our review of Navigator of the Seas and this 4-day itinerary. The night before our cruise, we stayed in Anaheim near Disneyland Resort at the Element Anaheim Hotel. We stayed in Anaheim because we wanted to go to downtown Disney and check out a few things, and also we felt safer being near Disneyland than we would in Long Beach. The drive from Anaheim to the Los Angeles cruise terminal isn't that far, it's only about a 45-minute drive, and we left about 2 hours before our scheduled embarkation time. Since we were doing a road trip, we parked at the cruise terminal, and cruise terminal parking was roughly $20 per day. The ship is a short walk from your parking spot at the cruise terminal. It takes less than a couple minutes to get there. There are porters out front that are ready to take your luggage, but please remember they do work on tips. The Los Angeles cruise terminal was very efficient. From the time we got in line to when they checked our bags and our passports to getting on the ship was less than 20 minutes. Most of this time waiting was simply waiting for our time slot to pop up and for us to wave us through. After all the security checks, you're basically right on the gantry to get onto the ship, and from there your vacation begins. I would say the process was much smoother than Fort Lauderdale, Galveston, or Seattle. Embarkation day is by far my favorite day of any type of vacation. That feeling as soon as you step onto the ship is incredible. Immediately you feel like you're on vacation, and everything else, work, whatever it happens to be, is just gone. Now, this is the first time, as we said, that we have been on Navigator of the Seas, but it is not our first Voyager-class ship. We sailed on Adventure of the Seas out of Galveston in January of 2022, so I will probably use Adventure of the Seas as my comparison for Navigator. Our initial impressions of Navigator of the Seas were simply, wow, you can tell this ship went through an amplification right before COVID. A lot of these changes are noticeable right on the Promenade, where you have several new venues. There is a slight contrast from the new modern look of the new venues versus some of the older venues that have been there since the ship has first set sail. But overall, the ship looked great. It was very beautiful. Basically, the overall impression, or first impression of this ship was it felt a lot newer and a lot more updated than Adventure of the Seas did last year. Right on the Promenade, the 2 newest venues definitely stand out. You have the Bamboo Room, which is a really cool tiki bar, and of course Playmakers, which is kind of a Royal Caribbean staple now as a sports bar at sea. The new Royal Caribbean shop, The Collection, looks really good as well. We're not the type of people that would get a haircut or any of that sort of stuff on a vacation, but to drive for looked really cool, and we definitely saw people using it throughout the week. They definitely made some really cool updates with the amplified remodels that they did, and I can't wait to see what else they have planned for the other Voyager-class ships that have not gone through that yet, like Adventure and Explorer. Now let's talk about our room. We had an ocean view balcony cabin on Deck 8. We have a separate room tour video on our channel if you want to check that out. It goes more in depth about what we liked and did not like about this room. But I will say it was a really good room and with a really good view from the balcony. I just wish the weather was better in January, February, so we could have sat outside longer. It was raining a few days, and it was kind of cold and windy, so we usually had the balcony room door open, but we weren't actually sitting out there because it was really cold. And if you also watch our room tour video, we pointed out that there are a couple broken light fixtures on the ceiling in the room, and some of the furniture does have some wear and tear and needs a little bit of updates, but overall it's a good cruise room. When they did the amplified remodels, they didn't do a lot in the rooms. I think they only kind of changed the carpet and then fixed a few things in each room. Our stateroom attendant's name was Churchill, and he was really good. We had a different towel animal every single time we came back to the room. The last one, I believe, was a giraffe, and it was the first time I had actually seen that on a cruise ship. It was really cool. We were not using elevators on this cruise, so we were taking the stairs everywhere we were going. And Deck 8 was perfect for that because you're only 3 floors above the Promenade and only 3 floors below the Windjammer. So if you wanted to run somewhere pretty quickly, you weren't that out of breath by the time you got there. Overall, a really good experience with the room. I would book this room again. If I was on another Voyager class ship too, I would probably book a room in a very similar place. Sail away out of the Port of Los Angeles isn't that pretty. It is more of an industrial port, so you have a lot of cargo and container ships being loaded and unloaded. There is the USS Iowa, which you go past, which was kind of cool. It's now a museum ship. But overall, the port isn't all that great looking. It's not like leaving the port of Miami and you have South Beach there, or Seattle and you have the Olympia Mountains and other nature and stuff. It's definitely industrial and kind of ugly. When we left the Port of Los Angeles, we were greeted by an entire pod of dolphins. I don't think I've ever seen this many dolphins in one place before. We sat on our balcony and just watched them for a while. They were everywhere, just breaching and jumping onto the water. It was one of the coolest things I've ever seen on a cruise ship. This is one of the cool things about sailing on the Pacific Ocean side of the United States. There's a lot more wildlife, especially when it comes to whales and dolphins. This makes having an ocean view balcony even better. On our first night on Navigator of the Seas, we watched the ice skating show, which is called Ice Skate in Studio B. Nicole loves the ice skating shows, and she drags me to at least 2 or 3 of them on all of our cruises, and of course we watched this one at least twice. In my opinion, I would rank this ice skating show as probably in the bottom of the ones that we've seen on Royal Caribbean ships. The shows on Oasis, Harmony, Wonder, and Adventure were much better. Even with the drone show, the overall feel of this ice skating show was very slow, and it wasn't as upbeat as some of the other shows that we've watched. That's not taking anything away from the skaters, as they are always awesome. After the ice skating show, we went to dinner in the main dining room. And I'm going to kind of talk about the overall main dining room experience for all the nights that we actually ate there. If you hadn't heard, Royal Caribbean is changing their main dining room menus. They're doing themed nights. So as an example, night 2 for us was French night. And I know one night they did Italian night, and the other night I believe was Mexican night. The first night of your cruise will be Welcome Aboard, and it'll be kind of the Royal Caribbean staples for their main dining room. I'm not sure if it was the new menus or just Navigator of the Seas in general, but the service and food in the main dining room was not very good. I'm not saying our waiter and his assistant were bad, the service was just incredibly slow. One of the reasons that Royal Caribbean went to more of a themed night for their main dining room was to make the service shorter so you can get out of there quicker. We didn't see any of that, as the first night our meal service took about an hour and 45 minutes, and the second night was even longer. On the first night with the welcome aboard menu, I had the southern fried chicken and Nicole had the prime rib. Nicole paired her prime rib with the key lime pie for dessert, and she had the Maryland crab cake for her appetizer. With my fried chicken, I had the Caesar salad and the Boston cream pie. Overall, the food on the first night was very meh. It was okay, it wasn't great, nothing to write home about. I will say the Boston cream pie was actually pretty decent, but other than that, nothing stood out. And we did not eat in the main dining room on night 3 or on night 4. We just went to the Windjammer, and then one day we had Playmakers. Now, about the Windjammer, I will say we were very surprised that the quality of the food in the Windjammer was a lot better than it was on Wonder of the Seas or on Adventure of the Seas from last year. We pretty much ate at the Windjammer for breakfast, lunch, and dinner for the majority of the cruise, and the food was really good. It didn't matter what they were serving, just about everything we had was decent. It was good. We would go back for more. It was definitely a lot better than the main dining room. The only time that we had any trouble in the Windjammer was on one night when it was incredibly busy. They were very hesitant to open up the other side so there was more tables to sit at. I would rank the experience in the Navigator of the Seas Windjammer above most of the ships we've been on, including Oasis, Harmony, Adventure, and Ovation. One of the other venues that we ate at was El Loco Fresh, and as it was on Wonder, El Loco Fresh is one of our favorite quick service type restaurants on a cruise ship. We ate at El Loco Fresh several times. The tortillas are freshly made. The food tastes really good. Nicole made a gigantic plate of nachos from the bar area that's there. We definitely recommend El Loco Fresh, and it's even better that it's right on the pool deck, so you can just go from there over to your chair and then into the pool after you're done. Now let's talk about what packages we purchased for this cruise. Nicole and I don't really drink that much alcohol when we're on a cruise ship, so we don't actually buy the Deluxe Beverage package. So for this cruise, as we have done for many other cruises, Nicole got the refreshment package so she can get as much coffee and mocktails as possible, and I got the Voom Internet soda package, which includes your internet and soda. We did not buy any dining packages on this cruise. With it being only a 4-night cruise, we didn't think we would use them. With the refreshment package, the best place to get a coffee is Cafe Promenade. The service at Cafe Promenade on this cruise was actually really good, and the drinks were excellent. The only time we ran into any problem was when the line was kinda long, but that's because there wasn't very many places to get coffee on Navigator of the Seas. The internet on Navigator of the Seas was much better than any of the other cruise ships that we've been on. The internet is powered by Starlink, which was the first time that we had actually used this Starlink internet. This was also a problem on Adventure of the Seas. It might just be a Voyager class problem, but there was not enough of these Coke Freestyle machines that you need for the soda package. Several of the Coke Freestyle machines that they did have would actually block you out from getting refills because it would say you still had another 4 hours until you were eligible for refill, which just meant the machines were broken. One thing that we were super happy about on Navigator of the Seas is Love and Marriage the game show and Crazy Quests are back. Love and Marriage is a cruise ship staple. It's basically the Newlywed Game. And if you've never seen Crazy Quest, we highly recommend it. It is adult only takes place in Studio B, and it's basically like an in-room scavenger hunt that gets really crazy. On to Catalina Island. Catalina Island is off the coast of California, and it is actually a tender port, which was the first time that we had ever done a tender port. If you're new to cruising and you don't know what a tender port is, it basically means that you don't actually dock the ship at a dock. You are taken ashore by smaller boats, ships, I guess they'd be boats, and then you return to the cruise ship by a smaller boat as well. Getting off the ship at a tender port with Royal Caribbean is a little bit different than just getting off a ship at a normal port. Royal Caribbean hands out tender boat tickets the day of the actual port day. We had to go to the main dining room and basically get 2 tickets that had a return time for us to go onto a boat to go to shore. One of the weird things about this 4-day cruise was the first day is a sea day, when you can see Catalina Island from the port of Los Angeles. Catalina is roughly 30 miles off the coast of California, and you go there on day 3. So on our sea day, we traveled roughly 130 miles. The captain said it was to get some smooth seas and some bright sun to make the sea day worth it. So basically you spent the entire day kind of just sitting in one place, waiting to go back to Catalina the next day. The city of Avalon is where you actually end up on Catalina Island. It is a small city on the side of a hillside. This was our first time on Catalina Island. We did not book any type of excursion and figured we would just explore the downtown area of Avalon and kind of see what it was. We basically walked from where the tender porters drop you off at all the way over to the casino, which is not actually a casino, it's more of a meeting place and a theater. We then went through a lot of the smaller shops and kind of did some shopping. We found a really good coffee shop for breakfast. The coffee shop was called the Catalina Island Coffee and Cookie Company. Definitely recommend it. As I said, we didn't do any type of excursions or anything like that. Kind of wanted to go see the buffalo, but we just decided not to since we have a Rome cruise in June coming up, and we wanted to save our money for that. But overall, we enjoyed walking around Avalon and doing a little bit of shopping and eating and doing all that normal stuff you would do on a cruise. I would say Catalina Island ranks right up there with the St. Martins and St. Thomas's of the world. It's actually a really good port to go to, and we recommend it. And as was the theme of this cruise, when we got back to the ship, we saw more wildlife. We weren't sure if they were dolphins, orca, or even false killer whales, but we did see something breaching the water near the ship, which was really, really cool. Let's talk about the shows on board Navigator of the Seas. Currently on Navigator of the Seas, there are 2 stage shows that are currently running. One of them is Ballroom Fever, the other is Showgirl. I will say the shows and theater type stuff on Navigator of the Seas was much better than the inaugural sailing of Wonder of the Seas. That was kind of expected since Wonder wasn't fully out when we were on it, but I was impressed, they were good. We also had 2 headliner acts, one of them was a ventriloquist, was pretty funny. Royals also brought back all of their parties. We had a 80s party and a 70s party while we were on board. And that's to go with all the typical stuff that they do, like the Name That Tune show, Family Feud, the trivia, all the good stuff that you would normally have on a cruise ship. As an overall feeling, I would say that the shows and entertainment on board were much better than what we were expecting when we booked this cruise. Our last port before returning home was Ensenada, Mexico. Ensenada is an okay port. It's not our favorite. I would rate it along the lines of a Cozumel or a Costa Maya. We basically walked from the ship to like a downtown area and went through some shops and did some walking around, and then went back over towards the water and did some more walking around. We didn't stay in port very long. It was not our most favorite place to be, and we definitely wanted to get onto the water slides and other things before the cruise was over. Speaking of the water slides, Navigator of the Seas has two of them. One, you go down face first on a mat, and the other one you sit in an inner tube, and it's more like a water coaster. Of the two, the water coaster was our favorite. It reminded us of Typhoon Lagoon's Crush and Gusher over at Walt Disney World. We were also very surprised that the other water slide, where you go down face first, was actually really fun, and the water was heated, which was great on a cold day. We didn't do any dining packages, but we did eat at Playmakers, which is considered a specialty dining restaurant. Playmakers is actually super cheap. We spent $4 on chicken tenders, and I think it was $5 on the buffalo chicken wrap. And then as one of the new venues on board Navigator of the Seas is the Bamboo Room. This is by far our favorite bar on any cruise ship now. The atmosphere is like that 1940s, 1950s tiki room, and the drinks that they serve there are excellent. You can also get one of the parrot mugs for about $10 when you buy one of the other alcoholic drinks. And as a fun story, we bought one of these mugs for our memory cabinet, and when I was taking it out of my backpack when we finally got home, I dropped it on the tile floor in the kitchen and shattered it. Super fun. Definitely recommend the Bamboo Room if you're ever on Navigator of the Seas, and it's also on Mariner of the Seas. The new Collection store, which is the Royal Caribbean shop in the Promenade, looks really good. But Royal Caribbean does not do very good with their merchandise. Most of the Royal Caribbean merchandise is very generic, and I don't think it's of very good quality. Overall, I would love to see more specific ship merchandise that was unique to that ship and that didn't actually feel like it was going to fall apart if you washed it. So Royal Caribbean, if you're listening, if you make better merch, we will buy more of it. I always want to wear a Royal Caribbean shirt or some sort of Royal Caribbean merchandise, but I will not pay for subpar stuff. We didn't have any video or photos of it, but getting off the ship was pretty standard. We normally roam around the ship and check out some of the rooms, like the suites and stuff, to kind of see how they are. But on this cruise, we kind of slept in a little bit too late and had to kind of get off the ship almost immediately. There was a line on Deck 5 when you're going back onto the gantry, but going through security and customs and all of that took almost no time at all. And since we parked right at the port, we just had to walk to our car, get in it, and drive home. So, in general, we really loved being back on a cruise ship, and Navigator of the Seas kind of blew away our expectations. There was two major downsides of this cruise. One was the main dining room not being that great and the service being super slow, and the other was a 4-day cruise just simply isn't long enough. We really hope you enjoyed this review of Navigator of the Seas and this 4-night itinerary. Catalina Island was great, Ensenada Mexico is just kinda whatever, but Navigator of the Seas was a great ship. Next time we sail out of Los Angeles, we're definitely going to do the 7-night cruise that goes to Cabo San Lucas and Puerto Vallarta. If you have any questions about this cruise, Navigator of the Seas, or any of our travels, please leave them in the comment section below. And as always, please make sure you like and subscribe.